October the 22nd, 2018. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call.
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad absent. Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Serko.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We have a quorum. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Several items on our agenda tonight don't have anything under presentations or personal appearances, so we'll move right to staff reports. Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Kras to make a report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Feuerborn. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to update you on a couple of things. The first, Hawk Ridge Park, the fishing dock is in place and is open. We don't really have a good pedestrian route there right now, so you got to kind of walk across the turf to get there, so be careful. Also, if you're visiting the park, please stay out of the construction area. It's fenced off, but there's a lot of work and hazards going on there. Upcoming work there this week, they are going to be staking the abutments locations for the boardwalk, so you'll be starting to see some lath in the lake where that is going to be. And the contractor is pouring or placing the footings for the bridge abutments on the south side of the park. We also received notification from Mark last week that our paver project has been nominated as a sustainable place success story. So staff will be making a presentation to Mark on December 7th, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions, Michael? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kras, great report, all around good news. A little curious, the boardwalk that's going to go around, which actually, for those of you who don't know, are going to go out across the water. So can you give us just a little description when you're suspending a structure over water, what that entails, and will they be doing that at the same time as the abutments?
The bridge is on the south side, so it's a typical pedestrian bridge like you see in any of our parks. So it's got a concrete abutment and then kind of an arch metal bridge like you see in any of the parks. The boardwalk is what they will be doing is using an auger system to go down into the lake and set it there, and then there'll be rods that stick up, and then it'll be built from there like a traditional deck you see on your backyards.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Michael. Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Mr. Kras. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council. A few updates in Parks and Recreation. We have our fall sports rapidly coming to an end for the fall season. Volleyball, soccer, fall baseball, all of that's within the next 10 days. We'll probably wrapping up. The RAC will be hosting the 3rd and 4th grade and the 5th and 6th grade volleyball tournaments. So we're pretty excited. That'll be the first time we're doing a tournament there, not in the school district. So we're using our facility, and we appreciate that. Basketball signups are coming up. If for those that want to register for basketball, there's a $10 discount if you sign up by this Friday. Otherwise, it's $90 up until November 16th. A couple events we got coming up is Veterans Day on November 9th. Change of venue this year. We're going to Memorial Park as opposed to TB Hanna, so just keep that on your calendars. We have a great lineup for that event. It will start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Our Christmas tree trail, the deadline for businesses, organizations to submit for the Christmas tree trail at TB Hanna Station is November 21st. There's no charge, but we do ask that you folks call into the office and get pre-registered so we can give some details for that. And then finally, the mayor's tree lighting is Friday, November 30th, and that will be at TB Hanna Station this year. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Holman.
Not a question, Mr. Mustine, but a comment. I was at the RAC last Thursday night for the high school soccer team, freshman boys party, end of season party. The RAC looked gorgeous. It was about 7:30 at night. All the exterior was lit up. The the fall display, the horticulture display that Haley did was beautiful, and it really set off the facility. I got lots of comments, all positive from everyone that was there. They thought it was a beautiful building. They really loved the venue. They were a little greedy. They wanted to be bigger, and I said, well, that may be sometime in the future. But very fantastic. The building looks as wonderful, I think, as it possibly could, and people are noticing. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll pass that along to Haley as well.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. I would ask Mr. Icky to make a report.
Thank you, sir. Wanted to announce a partnership between the Arts Commission and the Animal Shelter. We brought the Pop Art Your Pet event on October 11th. After the successful event, we were able to raise $720 for the animal shelter through that event. If you've gotten a chance to go on our Facebook page and see all the photos from the event itself, had a full house and a really great crowd out. Really excited about not only supporting the animal shelter, but also supporting the arts. Also wanted to announce, even though we are still a week away from Halloween, it's never too early to start thinking about the Christmas holiday. Wanted to also announce another partnership between the Arts Commission, a brand new partnership between the Arts Commission and the Ray Peck Choir Program. We'll be hosting a holiday sing-along on December 11th, Tuesday, December 11th, 3:30 to 5 p.m. at St. Paul's United Methodist Church. A great event. We'll be inviting the community to come out to sing holiday songs, Christmas carols, and much more, led by the choir director there at Ray Peck. So looking forward to that event. Wanted to make my plug early because I know holiday plans fill up quickly. Any questions? Thank you.
Anyone? Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Icky. Just a reminder to the council that next Monday night is a fifth Monday, so y'all get the evening off. That concludes staff reports this evening.
Okay,
sir.
thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Fearborn? Hearing none, we'll move on to committee reports, of which there are none tonight. So we will move on to the consent agenda. We have 4 items on our consent agenda tonight. I would entertain a motion to dispose of or portions of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda to include item A, City Council minutes, October 8, 2018. Item B, Recreation Park pedestrian safety improvements, acceptance and final payment. Item C, reappointment of Matthew Wiggins to the Ward 3 Planning and Zoning Commission seat. Item D, appointment of Jim Peterman to the Ward 2 Planning and Zoning Commission seat.
And I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0, 1 absent. We'll now move on to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is our budget. The public hearing is still open on the annual budget, and I would entertain, do you want to go into the staff report on this first? And have the second reading and then go with the staff report? And then move on to
yes, sir.
Public comment?
That
Okay.
would be great.
All right, so could I please have the second reading of Bill 3395 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3395 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving the fiscal year 2019 budget.
Thank you. Now the staff report. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. The original budget as presented to the council in August was presented for first reading 2 weeks ago at the council. Council did approve that on first reading. There was a work session last week to discuss any amendments to that budget that the council would be interested in. There were several that took the form of direct general fund expenditures and alternately general fund transfers out to various funds for specific purposes that were outlined by the council. Tonight we're back for second reading, and it is my understanding that the motion will include those items that were discussed by the council, and then it will be up to your discussion on those in particular if you have any additional questions that you would want to ask of staff.
Okay.
Because they are going to be a portion of the motion itself, I won't belabor it by going into the items here, sir, and simply let the motion speak for itself.
Okay.
That concludes staff report on this item.
All right. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, we have a public hearing that is still open. If anyone from the public would like to address the council with regard to the 2019 city budget, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If there are none, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and I would entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3395.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3395, adoption of fiscal year 2019 city budget, subject to the following revisions, additions, and amendments. General fund expenditures, $30,000 for the police department forensic extraction device, $1,700 for police department fingerprint scanner, $25,000 for police department license plate reader, $8,000 for council-granted holiday, $15,000 for Raymore coins for awards and recognitions, $2,000 for branding and apparel. General fund transfers out of the following reasons and amounts: $500,000 to the Capital Improvement Fund Command Post Vehicle, $25,000 to the Capital Improvement Fund Replacement of Utility Task Vehicle Police Department, $58,000 to the Capital Improvement Fund Centerview Speaker and Video Equipment, $150,000 to the Capital Improvement Fund Madison Street Trail Improvements, $50,000 to the Restricted Revenue Fund CJIS software for 10 years, $19,440 to the Restricted Revenue Fund Oates Bus for 3 years, $54,750 to the Restricted Revenue Fund set aside for the Johnson Drive Street Project.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Your Honor, a correction to what was said. He said 25,000. The council member said 25,000. It's 25,500 for the transfer to the Capital Improvement Fund Replacement UTVPD.
Do you wish to add that to your motion?
In the transfers, the second one, sir, you indicated 25,000 for that item. It's actually 25,500.
For the license plate reader?
No, for the UTV in the transfers out.
Oh, okay. I'll amend the $25,500 to the Capital Improvement Fund Replacement Utility Task Vehicle Police Department.
I'm good with that,
Yeah, no, that's part of the original motion, if he's making the motion. It's just a Scribner's error there. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the items as well as the entire budget for approval. I won't recap those. It'd be impossible for me to. So I will let his motion stand. And we have a motion and a second on that. Is there further discussion? Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to amend on the 2019 budget on a line item, the drone tether system for $15,000. And sorry I didn't bring it up last week. I thought about it and we got busy. I did my due diligence on this and found out that the actual system, what it does, that drone tether system, it actually gives continuous power and data to the drone while it's in the air. So if you don't have to bring it back if the battery pack was getting weak, and bring it down and recharge it with a new battery. This will keep it continuous power and continuous data, which I think is very important. We have a uniquely great drone department and people like Captain Mayberry and Mike Eke who have trained and their staff. So with this, and we have the state-of-the-art drone, I'd love to make sure we have everything working for that drone. Again, I would hate to have it brought back, just put a battery pack and put it back in the air in an area they're looking for any situation, whether it be a child or silver alert or whatever, and it's up in the air doing its job. And I really believe...
it's a long motion, Tom.
Oh, well, anyway.
Kind of point of order.
Okay.
We can discuss.
Okay, so that's why, but I do make a motion that we add that to the 2019
no. Is there a
budget.
Second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion been made and seconded. Further discussion. Now you can talk about it, but you pretty much have.
I pretty much have. Yeah. Anyway, again, I think it would be a good addition. It's something we do need to have with our department, our drone department. I think it would be an awesome addition. And we have the funds. I talked Mr. Fearborn, we do have the funds for it, and it will not put us below our emergency fund money, the minimum that we have to have, so we are good financially on that.
Further discussion, Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the amendment, Mr. Circo. One question I do have, is a question concern. I don't see Jim Mayberry here, but maybe staff does know. I'm kind of curious with the tether, and I apologize for my absence here lately, but I'm kind of curious with the tether wire, the tether cable, in further on down the roads, do we expect it to be compatible with any future drones? A drone is just like a vehicle, and we have those all on the VERT program. So when we upgrade in the future, I'm just kind of curious if this expenditure will be able to be used in the future with a more updated drone.
Chief, can you speak to that? Mr. Fearborn?
I would imagine that if we got a new drone in the future and upgraded, we would probably also get a new tether. The entire package price will be included in the VERP payment that we are making each year, so it would be covered one way or the other.
Any further discussion on the amended motion? Hearing none, those in favor of the amendment? Amendment carries 7-0. So we have the original motion on the floor to accept the budget as outlined in the initial motion with the amendment. Any further discussion on that? On the original motion? Mr. Kellogg.
I want to take a moment to thank my colleagues, because when I read this tonight, I smiled big time. I remember several years ago, Sonia and I tried to get an amendment into the budget for the Oates bus, and I see that is there, and I am extremely pleased. I want to thank each and every one of my colleagues for considering this. In my absence, I would have enthusiastically supported this, as you can see. So again, thank you all for the amendment of the budget and the expenditure.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment, or maybe a point of order. When Councilman Barber read down the list of all the expenditures, when he mentioned council granted holiday, I just wanted to explain that that's not a holiday for the council, as much fun as that might be. That is actually, we're giving, upon recommendation from city staff, the council has agreed to give the city staff a day off the day before New Year's Day. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct, sir.
And the funding is simply for overtime and expenditures for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Anyone else? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. The budget is passed. Yay. For you students in the audience, that's probably the biggest thing we do every year for the city as a group of elected officials, and it's very important for the good order of the city that a great budget that Mr. Fearborn and his staff prepare for us goes through and is kind of our planning guidebook for the remainder of the year. We'll move on to the West Peculiar Fire Dispatch Agreement. So could I please have the second reading of Bill 3392?
The second reading of Bill 3392 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing an intergovernmental agreement with the West Peculiar Fire District for emergency dispatch services.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3392?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3392, West Peculiar Fire Dispatch Agreement.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3392. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0, one absent. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3388 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3388 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Superior Bowen Asphalt Company, LLC, for the 155th Street reconstruction, city project number 18-260-201, in the amount of $463,731.25.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3388?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3388, award of contract 155th Fifth Street reconstruction.
And much like the enthusiasm shown by Councilmember Kellogg about the Oates bus, I will enthusiastically second this motion, sir.
Thank you. The motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3388. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Just a little bit of information. This is a project we were able to do with some cost savings that we realized after we took over the bridge and replaced that. For those of you that drive that route, you know that's been out for quite some time. It's been a great thing that our staff went out and looked at, partnered with the city of Kansas City to get that bridge reopened and that route reopened that you all are enjoying now if you're driving it. And this is a little bit of leftover funds that we're going to use to widen a portion of that road and make your travels even safer, smoother, and better. So this is a great project.
Well said. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0, 1 absent. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3393 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3393 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Benchmark Construction for the City Hall front entrance and lobby modifications, City Project Number 18-264-201-202, in the amount of $217,071.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3393?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3393, award of contract City Hall front entrance and lobby modifications.
And I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve second reading of Bill 3393. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0, 1 absent. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3394 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3394 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to approve street light work by Black & McDonald in the amount of $21,350 for installation of new street lights.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3394?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3394, approval of street light installation.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3394. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0, 1 absent. Thank you. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3396 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3396 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from R3A, Multiple Family Residential District, to R3B, Apartment Community Residential District, a 3.6-acre tract of land known as Parcel 5 of the amended Eagle Glen preliminary plat, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. As you know, this item was carried over from the October 8th agenda at the request of the applicant and the planning department, or the Mr. Cataret. Could I please have a staff report on this?
And the public hearing is open. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would open a public hearing at this time. I'm sorry, sir.
I was just getting clarification for myself. Yeah.
We'll keep it open and keep going here.
So I have a flat
anything
top,
additional?
sir. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make staff report on this item.
Thank you. Cataret.
Thank you, sir. If I may, on this particular request, have the applicant, they have a brief presentation they'd like to share with the council to give the overview of the project, and then I'll do the staff report after her presentation. I will, for the council's benefit, go ahead and broadcast what her presentation will be to the public, so you'll see that. As soon as it's concluded, I'll free your screens back up for you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, hi there again.
Hello.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Cassie Pabin, C-A-S-S-I-E, P as in Paul, A, B as in boy, E, N as in Nancy, 10340 North 84th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68122. I'm getting really good at that.
You are.
I know there's a few agendas, a few agenda items on this particular project tonight, so what I figured I would do is just give an overall general presentation on items A through C, and we'll go through questions as we need to. I think last time we were kind of skipping around based on the different items, but I'm always open to questions. So we'll walk through this. Our project is the Lofts at Fox Ridge, and I'll give you a little bit of a background of our project team that's putting this together. I am with Tetra Property Group. We're based out of Omaha, Nebraska. We also have offices in Lincoln, Nebraska, and Fort Collins, Colorado. We've done about $1.2 billion worth of development since 2011, and that ranges everywhere, primarily commercial development, but we do office buildings. We do a lot of work with colleges and universities, a lot of public-private partnerships, other projects with municipalities, multifamily, mixed use, sports arenas, parking garages, intermixed with a variety of things, and just have always looked at things. We were brought this project through a mutual friend, and with that, we have put together a team that you'll see the project before. Our engineers are Olson Associates. We use them on quite a few projects. I know that they've done some work on some other projects here in Raymore as well. And then Holland Basham Architects, which is also based out of Omaha, is our architect for this. They have done over 7,000 apartment units in about the 25 years that they've been around. So they have significant experience in this particular field. I think we're all fairly familiar with the site. I know it's been in front of the city a couple different times on different planning purposes and going through, but for those that are not familiar with it, the site is just south of Highway 58 along Fox Ridge Drive. There's a large tract of land, I believe it's about 40 acres, just to the north of there that abuts. It's currently vacant. We have been in communication with the city economic development folks. I know that they're actively looking for someone to come and develop that portion of it. We obviously have an interest in seeing that developed as well, but the parcel that we are discussing tonight is the lofts at Fox Ridge, which, as you'll see on your screen, is outlined in red, kind of in the center, just north of Eagle Glen Elementary and kind of kitty corner from the Manor Homes at Eagle Glen. This next slide is a site plan for our entire project. There's 12 buildings that encompass the site. One of those buildings being the clubhouse, the remaining 11 of the project itself. We are proposing to build up to 400 units on the site, which is also the maximum number of units that you could build there. I believe that was an agreement that was made between the city of Raymore and the previous development company that was looking at that. And as we've started looking at the site and what you could really do with it, it really made sense for a lot of different reasons to stick with that number and not go into any more. But as you see the site, it's really kind of a U-shaped site that goes throughout it. If you start down on the bottom south side, or that southeast corner, that far southeast corner, is primarily a detention center, and that we'll use that for all the runoff that we're required to make sure that we're managing as part of the project as well. And we have two different unit types. So this first set of buildings that you see are what are traditionally known as a garden style apartment type. And that's really just meaning it's a slab on grade construction type with stick built above. As you work towards the back end of this site, there's a longer building that has a little bit of an angle to it. That one is more of a pedestal type building, so there will be parking underneath that particular building with the residential built above that. And then when you go back up to the north, you'll see that apartment, or the garden style apartments again.
Ms. Pavin? Which building is that?
The far one in the back, the west end of the site. Yeah, the big long one. That one is the one that has the parking underneath it. What's not depicted in this site plan is, as you start to look at the surface parking lots, we've had several discussions with city staff as well as internally about what makes the most sense as it relates to parking. We've also, as we continue to look at market statistics, look at offerings, work with the various groups in the region about what people are wanting to see, we are looking at adding either one, if not both, of the following options as it relates to the parking, the surface parking. Some of that would be covered canopy parking to allow for additional shelter. We're also looking at adding some slab-on-grade garages in certain portions of the site, just to offer another amenity for those that might be in a garden style rather than just having them on the surface lot itself. The site, as you probably know, is fairly topography challenged. I think if it's proper English. So as we started working on the layout of the site, we really thought it was important to make sure that we were capturing as best we could the grade of the site and using that as really to our advantage when it comes to doing site grading work there. So that's also part of the reason why you see that long building in the back with the pedestal parking underneath. If we didn't have a structure back there, you'd end up with anywhere from an 8 to 10 foot retaining wall across the entire length of the site, which then starts to put financials into question and really limits what you can do just with what you have to do in terms of grading. So by picking that style for that end of the site, we were able to make the grading work and make that all function as well, and then offer another amenity to those that end up living within the community. A couple of other things, a lot of people have asked about the trees that run along Fox Ridge Drive. Those trees will stay. There's a great set of great rows of trees that we'll use as part of our landscaping requirements. And then within the middle of the site, there's also various trees. So as we're going through and getting ready to do the site work, we'll make an evaluation to see what trees are actually able to be replanted and use those as other planting throughout the site, just so then that way we're still utilizing them to the best that we possibly can. When you look at the site, there's the one entrance that comes in and off of Fox Ridge Drive. If you go to the north and if you look, and it might be a little hard to see on your screen, there is a dedicated right-of-way for a future street that would be connected, which would also allow for another entrance into the project from that street connection. And talking with city staff, it's contemplated that that street would get put in when the commercial development to the north starts to go. We'll walk through a couple of the different aerial views and sight lines for the project. I do have a materials board, so if you're wanting to see more of what we're looking at and how they relate to the buildings, we can certainly grab that as well and walk through that. But this would be looking into the project from the east, obviously a little bit more elevated view than street view, so that way we could see above the trees. But this is generally the layout that would be seen as anybody pulled into the complex. You'd be greeted by the main clubhouse, which would be where our leasing office would be. As we sit here today, it is our contemplation to have us do the property management for that, and with that would mean we would have staff that was on site and manage that property for us. And so being here. Move through, again, as you pull in just to the west side, or south side, excuse me, of the main clubhouse area. You'll see the garden-style apartment varieties there. Kind of coming around towards the back, the structure that has the yellow colored awning on it is that large building that has the pedestal style building with the parking underneath of it. This view would actually be from the furthest west looking east. In the center of the project, we propose to have kind of a great green lawn, if you will, to allow for additional amenities, activities, gathering space. One of the things that we're looking at is a variety of different resident activities, and so this would be one place during the months that allow weather-wise for that to happen. And then the clubhouse. As you see when you first come in. Some of the other amenities that we're looking at, let me pull that list up here. For the project itself, and I'll discuss the just general amenity list as it relates to the entire community, and then when I pull up the next slide on the unit, we'll talk more about the unit amenities. But community amenities, like I said before, on-site management, that would be an employee of ours or employees of ours, because we realize it's not just going to be able to be one person. There'll be a few that do that. We are looking at providing a full-service concierge. We are looking at some of the units to allow overnight guest suites for those that aren't familiar, rather than if you have people coming to visit and they're going to stay the night, rather than trying to cram everybody into an apartment. You can rent a fully furnished guest suite for your guests to stay in for a nominal charge. So then that way they're on site with you rather than somewhere else. Obviously pet-friendly community with those amenities. So we're looking at doggy washes and the ability to have groomers come in and be on site and do any of those things for those that might be living there as well as a dog run and other pet amenities in that space. We are also looking at putting in an entertaining media lounge. So that could be a big screen where you want to have a bunch of folks gather to watch the game. It could be for movie night activities. It could be a variety of things, as well as other games that would be available within there, whether it's billiards or board games or whatever, foosball tables. Found some really cool air hockey tables the other day, so I don't know, it's kind of exciting. We're looking at a business center within that complex as well for those that might need to quick print something that don't have that provided within their confines of their apartment unit. Obviously, the pool, as you saw within some of the renderings and spa area, the pool would be heated, and along with that, on the outdoor patio area would allow enough space for outdoor grilling, seating, think private cabanas. When I say resort style, think a resort, that type of aspect. We're also considering, as part of that, a potential fire pit area, and then, as I said before, the green park-like corridor concept with other amenities, and then the monthly resident events. This picture, hopefully you can see it fairly well. This would be a typical unit as one of our one-bedroom units. You walk in, that front left corner is really an additional closet space, and then you would have your living room and kitchen areas. And then as you went on back, you would have that next space to the right-hand side. I don't think this thing points with a red laser, does it, Jim? Right there, yes. Utility closet, and then the next one over would be washer and dryer. And then every bedroom would have, or every one bedroom for sure, and then as you got into the 2 bedrooms would have the walk-in closets along with that. As part of the typical units, what we're looking at in there would be high-end stainless steel appliances, refrigerators that include ice making capabilities and water all functioning in one. The backsplashes in the kitchen would be tiled with solid surface countertops, think granite or quartz. The washer and dryer in the units, everything pre-wired for cable and internet service. The walk-in closets, the flooring in the main areas, so the main areas being the kitchen and the living room and the hallway, would be a wood-style vinyl plank flooring. If anybody's installed Cortex, it'd be something similar to that allows for good durability. They're usually 9 times out of 10, and I can tell you because I've installed some, waterproof. They're very pet friendly. They're fairly easy to maintain long term as well, and they hold up and they look really, really nice. The flat top stoves, key fob deadbolt locks rather than your traditional key, so then that way we can keep monitoring with that. Modern ceiling light fixtures, plush carpet in the bedroom and the closets, condo level finishes throughout the balconies, modern roller window shades, and then obviously top of the line cabinetry within both the bathroom and the kitchen areas. If there's any other questions regarding the project, I'd be happy to take those at this time.
It's kind of the next item. We're talking about zoning at this point. Okay. Anybody have any questions of the applicant? Thank you. Is there anything further from staff on this, Mr. Carteret?
Yes, sir. Just give me one moment. I'll release your computers. Thank you, sir. So the applicant did give the overview of the entire project. So we actually have 3 items on your agenda regarding land use. The item before you, Bill 3396, the first action item is for a reclassification of zoning for a portion of the property. So the bulk of the property, the 25-acre overall property, is currently zoned R3B, which is our apartment zoning classification. But there is a strip of land, the 3.6 acres along the southern property line of the property. It'd be a tract of land immediately adjacent to the Eagle Glen school site. It's about 120 feet in depth. This strip of zoning, piece of zoning, was completed in 2011 as the R3A. It was a multifamily zoning designation that the property owner at that time was looking to construct townhomes along that area with apartments to the north. So the proposal this evening is to take that 3.6 acres and reclassify the zoning to R3B, so the entire property would be under the apartment zoning classification. So it is a request for rezoning. It does require a public hearing that was advertised for this evening. I do want to enter into the record the notices that were sent to the adjoining property owners. The notice of publication in the Journal newspaper, our Unified Development Code, the application that was submitted, our growth management plan, staff report submitted to you this evening, and then the conceptual site plan that the applicant showed you previously. As I indicated, this particular zoning, the R3A, has been in place since 2011, but overall, the entire property has been designated for multifamily since the Eagle Glen subdivision was first proposed back in 1999. The only thing that's changed since 1999 has been the location of that R3A. Initially, it was adjacent to Fox Haven. 2011, it got moved to the south property line, and then this evening they're trying to eliminate that to have a more cohesive zoning for the property to allow a more cohesive development. So it is a rezoning. It did require a good neighbor meeting that we held back on September 19th. It was attended by 11 residents. A lot of comments, questions came out of that meeting, so very productive. I provided an overview of the questions and responses staff and the applicant gave at that good neighbor meeting. So I indicated that the current zoning, the R3A, does allow for multifamily, but it's geared towards townhomes or fourplex buildings. The rezoning would eliminate that possibility. So the only thing under the new zoning would be apartment development under one common ownership. The applicant talked about the maximum density. Back in 2011, the property owner at that time, when they got the zoning, the R3A and R3B, they placed a self-imposed limitation on density. Overall, the density that would have been allowed for the property would have been 542 units. They agreed to a reduction to limit the total density of this property to 400 units. The development standards, setbacks, things of that nature are the same with R3A and R3B zoning. The type A screening that's required today would still be required under the rezoning, and this would be a screening that would have to be placed along the common property line of Fox Haven and the Eagle Glen School. There's a good tree row currently existing along the Fox Haven subdivision, but there definitely needs to be additional landscaping, screening placed along the common property line with the school. And the site plan that was submitted to the Planning Commission for the project showed a very detailed berm with landscaping on it to create that visual barrier from the parking lot areas and the apartment community to the school site itself. The Planning Commission, as part of the staff report, has submitted its proposed findings of fact on the rezoning request. The commission at its October 2nd meeting did vote 8-1 to accept those findings and forward this case to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. The Public Works Department submitted their memo on adequate public facilities. As the applicant indicated, one thing that was talked about was the access to the property. So currently it has the one access off of Fox Ridge Drive. If the property is developed entirely as an apartment community, eventually, there would be an emergency access provided to Ridgeway Drive currently, and then it would be long-term Ridgeway would be continued all the way over to Fox Ridge Drive. So that was one topic I know that came up at the rezoning Good Neighbor meeting. I also included the meeting minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of October 2nd, so you could see the comments that the commission had when they passed a recommendation of approval. So that would conclude staff report at this time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cataract. Any questions of Mr. Cataract? Mr. Holman?
Thank you, Mr. Cataract. Very thorough and comprehensive. Talked about the specifically if we get development on the north side of that proposed property, commercial, likely building out either from a developer or from the city, the extension of Ridgeway from Fox Ridge across. And then the applicant talked a little bit about that, obviously offering there on the, would be on the west end, an opportunity for another entrance into the facility. Do we have an MOU in place with them should that road occur, or is that just kind of a we'll do it? Is it going to be our responsibility to basically have an opening from that road if and when it goes in to their parking lot, or would they take care of that, I guess is my question.
The roadway itself, extension of Ridgeway Drive is a public road. What is going to be done with the commercial development? In lieu of that, there is a requirement as part of site plan approval for a temporary access drive in what would be that right-of-way to allow emergency vehicles to connect to the existing townhome development of Ridgeway Villas. So that's short-term, where they would provide that emergency access, again, only for emergency vehicles. Long-term, the site plan approval does talk about a permanent access drive from the parking lot area to the Ridgeway Drive. So yes, when that Ridgeway Drive is constructed, then the entrance drive would have to be connected between the apartments and the new Ridgeway Drive as a permanent second access, and then the emergency drive could go away.
Okay, and so the applicant is fully aware once that road goes in, they're going to have to make that short connection between their parking lot and provide a second access into the facility.
Yes, that's very clear with the site plan approval.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a quick question. I was reviewing the minutes earlier from the planning and zoning. There was one dissenting vote. Was there any comments as to reasons?
I could tell you there was a lot of discussion. Hopefully the minutes reflected some of the discussion of that commissioner that did vote against the motion to recommend approval. There was opportunity after the motion was made to provide specific comments as to why the vote. They declined to give comments, so I'd only be speculating if I say why they voted against it.
Yeah, I don't mind speculating. Actually, it's not speculation. Some of the comments centered around the safety between the apartment complex and the school. They felt that the senator felt that potentially that the school district hadn't been included totally in the talks of the planning. They have been. I've talked to Dr. Monses after that meeting. Dr. Monses is fine with everything, the way they're protecting it with an opaque berming and screening process. And the other thing was a flat roof. I think he wasn't really, it's not a pitched roof project, it's a flat roof project, and it didn't meet his eye. So those were a couple of the highlights that I picked up from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that I attended.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was similar questions and comments I heard from attending the Good Neighbor meeting as well. There were some questions from the residents regarding the pitched roof versus the flat roof, and reading the minutes from the Planning and Zoning. Similar conversation was going on there, as well as some traffic concerns, obviously, with the 400 units and the traffic spilling out right onto Fox Ridge Drive. What does that mean for the Dean Highway intersection and so on? So I just wanted to get some clarification. There was other discussion regarding that one particular vote. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not sure that this question is properly placed. We've got 3 items on tonight, but I'll ask, and if it's improper at this point, please correct me, and I'll hold it off until that point. What my concern is like I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Cassie, I'm sorry, forgive me. I heard you speak of that you're going to do everything to save those trees along Fox Ridge Drive, which I appreciate. Another concern that I have is along the west end of the property. The existing trees that are there, they're going to be used as screening, of course, and rightfully so. What my concern is if they are damaged or they're hurt in the process of constructing, is there a plan in place to replace those or have another substitute in the case that?
I think actually your question might be more accurate with the next item on the agenda with regard to that, because we're still just kind of focusing on zoning.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that, and
No
that's
problem.
exactly
Is that okay?
what I was looking for. That's
Okay.
fine. I'm willing to, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? The public hearing is open, and so I would invite anyone from the public that wishes to speak to this topic. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and I would entertain a motion to dispose of Bill, I've turned my pages several times here. 3396. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3396, reclassification of zoning lofts at Fox Ridge.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3396. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. One absent. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 1862?
The reading of Resolution 18-62 by title only. A resolution of the Raymore City Council approving the lofts at Fox Ridge preliminary plat located in the northeast quarter of Section 17, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, all in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I'll remind you that the public hearing is carried over from being opened on October the 8th, and I would ask for a staff report.
I would ask Mr. Carteret to give staff report on this item, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So Resolution 18-62 is the request for preliminary plat approval of the lofts at Fox Ridge. This would be establishing a one-lot subdivision, one-lot residential subdivision for the apartment community. So it'd be an overall 24.96 acre lot, again, located directly north of the Eagle Glen school site. Since it is a preliminary plat, it too requires a public hearing that was advertised. I do want to enter into the record the notices to the adjoining property owners, the notice of publication in the Journal, our Unified Development Code, the application submitted, our growth management plan, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. So again, with this one-lot subdivision, the limitations on density applies to the overall plat. When I identified the 400 maximum units, what that gives us overall is a 15.8 units per acre development on this preliminary plat, which is less than the 21 acres that is allowed by code. As was indicated earlier, with the development agreement that that the development agreement that impacts the entire development itself, there was an amendment back in 2014 regarding preliminary plat and development of this project. I mentioned that because it does provide some benefits to the Eagle Glen community. There's quite a bit of stormwater flow that goes through the front part of this property. So the area where the trees are going to be preserved is a significant drainage channel, draining water from the North 58 Highway and the undeveloped land. That water will continue to flow through the site, will not be detained on site, but it flows through the site underneath Fox Ridge Drive into the drainage channel that goes along the east side of Fox Ridge. So those are familiar, there's a drainage channel going from about midpoint of this property to the south. The developer agreed to do some off-site water quality mitigation when development occurred, and so the applicant does have to accept that requirement and will be doing some off-site stormwater improvements, water quality improvements within that drainage channel as part of this development. Again, preliminary plat requires a good neighbor meeting, so we combined it with the rezoning discussion, and those comments are again provided as part of your staff report submitted to you this evening. The current preliminary plat that exists did anticipate the continuation of Cooper Drive from Fox Haven over to Eagle Glen. And that was to provide access to the townhome units that were going to be part of that R3A area. With that zoning eliminated, the need for the Cooper Drive extension is no longer there. In fact, Cooper Drive extension, when it was approved, was actually somewhat contentious to residents in the Eagle Glen subdivision, the single family further to the east. They were not specifically in favor of Cooper Drive, though it certainly at that time was providing some benefits as a second access out of the Fox Haven subdivision. Now we believe with the extension of Johnston, that gets folks another way out of Fox Haven other than 58. Folks can get on Johnston to go over Dean Avenue. We don't believe that the extension of Cooper Drive is really a necessity for the Fox Haven residents anymore. So part of the reason why staff was supporting the rezoning and this preliminary plat was the change of eliminating Cooper Drive, which really would have been an impediment to the development of an apartment community over the entire acreage. So that's why we supported that part of the request. One other requirement of this development of this tract of land is to allow for orderly continuation of our sanitary sewer system. We do require extension of sewer lines to serve undeveloped property. Right now, the sanitary sewer service to this property is about at midpoint at Fox Ridge Drive. There's no sanitary sewer service to the commercial land to the north. But as part of this development, our code does require that that sewer line be extended to the north property line. What that then does is allow for orderly development of the next property further on down the sewer line, if you would. So then when that property develops, they have an exit point, if you would, for the sewage. So that is going to be constructed as part of this development. Part of that line they would be able to utilize for their buildings, and the rest of it would simply be extended up to the north property line. I do want to note the Planning Commission submitted proposed findings of fact on the preliminary plat submitted to you, and it was at their October 2nd meeting that they did vote 8-1 to accept those findings and forward this request for preliminary plat approval to the council with a recommendation of approval. Again, I included the engineering memo on adequate public facilities and the meeting minutes, the excerpt on this agenda item. I do want to note a preliminary plat only requires one reading as part of a resolution. So it is important that the zoning application needs to be approved first. So what I would request is that we continue the public hearing, have any questions that we have this evening. We can close the public hearing this evening, but to continue this preliminary plat case to your next meeting, where we can then have a vote after a final determination is made on the rezoning application.
Okay.
So that would conclude staff reports, sir.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Any questions to staff at this time? I would, Cassie, do you have anything additional to add to that? The applicant?
Cassie Pabin, 10340 North 84th Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68122. The only other thing I would add, and anybody correct me if now is not the time, but the question on the landscaping to the west. Can I answer that now?
Yep, go ahead.
So as we start to grade on the west edge of that property, our grading package, we won't actually touch, we won't get near that tree line on the west edge. And part of that was by design, because as you start to get in to that portion of it, it becomes very steep. And making sure that we're meeting all the ADA requirements as it relates there, we've purposely pushed really the entire true development of the 24, almost 25 acres more to the center of that site to allow for enough buffer, particularly on that west edge with the grading. But if in the event something happens, I mean, we're committed to making sure that the landscaping is done appropriately throughout the entire property. The only other thing I would add is as we start going through construction, we're currently working on our construction timeline. It would be our intent with approvals by this body to start going vertical in spring. We're hopefully, I'll knock on wood, hoping in March to be able to start going vertical. And right now we're anticipating at least 20 months to do the entire build out of the project. So it won't be every building at once. We'll start to work our way throughout the site just because of the magnitude of A, the property, and B, the number of units that we're looking at.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Ms. Pavin? Come on back.
Sorry to
Mr.
pull you
Hall.
back.
No,
I just
no worries.
had a quick question. So by my count, you've mentioned Omaha more times than Peyton Manning did in most of his single games
I don't know.
when he was still playing.
There was a lot of money donated when he did that.
My question is, since you and all the other firms involved in this are from the Omaha area, you're not going to restrict this to Huskers fans only that can live there, correct?
No, but people better watch out. We're coming for them.
Just thought I'd check. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Burt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this isn't the plat that we're looking at or the final design here, but was there any thought to necessitating any kind of a secured entrance or gates to the
property
site?
itself?
Yeah, to the property. I was just curious.
We felt, just given the area in which we were in, that we really didn't need to put up a gate to the property itself. The only gate that there will be for that emergency vehicle access until the road to the north is fully constructed and installed, just to allow for emergency vehicles shall they need to get in there. But we really didn't feel the need for a gate to control access there. I think we're in a pretty safe community.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Barber.
Are we talking about the November 12th council meeting?
There won't be a meeting on November 12th.
Okay.
So I was looking at the next scheduled meeting of the council.
Which is?
26, sir.
Okay.
We may be, we are sensitive to the number of items that are on a roll here this evening, so I may be speaking with the mayor about the possibility of an alternate meeting.
Mr. Barber, something else?
Well, do you want the motion to say 26 specifically, or how do you want?
To the next meeting.
Next meeting.
Specific to the motion.
Next meeting, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassie.
Yep.
Just to remind everyone, we do have a public hearing that is open at this time. If anyone wishes to address the council with regard to this topic, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and I would entertain a motion to dispose of Resolution 1862. Or dispose of, yeah, I mean, that'd be, you can do it either way.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move that we continue Resolution 18-62, the lofts at Fox Ridge preliminary plat, to the next council meeting.
Thank
I'll
you.
second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to move the approval or the this item to the next council session. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0. One absent. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3401 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3401 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the final plat for the lofts at Fox Ridge, a subdivision located in the northeast quarter of Section 17, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Okay, I'm now told that this does not require a public hearing. I would ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make the staff report for this item.
Thank you, sir. So this is the third and final land use application this evening for the Lofts at Fox Ridge project. This is the final plat that will establish the document for recording purposes, creating the one-lot Lofts at Fox Ridge plat. Again, covering the entire 24.96 acres. This final plat drawing did include that portion, that right-of-way of the extension of Ridgeway Drive that would cross through this property. So the entire roadway on the west side starts on their property, but then it veers to the north. It ends up being on the tract of land further to the north, but they are dedicating the necessary right-of-way and easements for public infrastructure that are necessary as part of this project, and also the continuation of the sewer line to the north that I described earlier. Again, I do note this particular final plat application is contingent on the preliminary plat being approved at the next meeting, but we can't approve first reading this evening. And then if the preliminary plat is approved at your next meeting, we can do second reading for the final plat itself. Planning Commission has submitted proposed findings of fact as part of this final plat application. And it was at their October 16th meeting that they voted 7-0 to accept those findings and forward this request to the council with a recommendation of approval, subject to 6 conditions that are listed in the staff report. Again, the adequate public facilities memo is included as part of this application. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3401.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3401, the lofts at Fox Ridge final plat.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3401. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3399 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3399 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving a plan for an industrial development project and authorizing the City of Raymore, Missouri to issue taxable industrial development revenue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $42,570,000 and to enter into certain documents in connection therewith.
Thank you. This item does require a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Tapp to open the staff report for this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Brought before your consideration this evening is a request for Chapter 100 bonds, which they're requesting tax incentives, financial incentives in the form of Chapter 100. If you may recall, we've had a few work sessions regarding the mechanism of Chapter 100, so we thought accordingly that we should invite Gilmore and Bell, our Economic Development Legal Counsel, to speak this evening on a staff report. So Mr. Sid Douglas is here to present the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, Sid.
Sid Douglas with Gilmore and Bell, 2405 Grand Boulevard in Kansas City, Missouri, bond counsel to the City of Raymore.
Thank you, sir.
The economic incentives are requested is tax abatement under Chapter 100. The request is to receive 75% tax abatement through the first 13 years of the project once it's completed. The next 5 years of the project is requested to be tax abated at 55% of the property taxes would be paid. And the last 5 years would have tax abatement of 35% of the taxes would be paid. In order to accomplish the tax abatement, the property that has been, you've heard discussions about this evening, will be transferred to the city with legal title. The city will lease the property back to the company and provide for payments to make debt service payments on the bonds. The lease will be through the end of 2043, which is the end of the tax abatement period that's expected for the project. There will be a performance agreement that is being approved as part of the ordinance that's being considered this evening. They'll have the method of the payment in lieu of taxes, and also that if they fail to continue to maintain the project as a Class A apartment complex, or to meet certain investment thresholds, that they'll either lose all or a significant portion of the tax abatement that would be offered. The company is agreeing to buy the bonds themselves. That's very common in order to provide tax abatement on these kind of projects. As part of that, with that and then with the lease, that the company is indemnifying the city for any liabilities related to the project that might be incurred, as well as any environmental losses or provisions that might be applicable because of the site itself. With the submission of the original request, we originally thought that the project was going to be completed in 2019. We've, subsequent to the original notification went out to the taxing districts, we now understand that the project is not going to be completed until 2020. So a revised plan is going to have to be distributed to the taxing districts. The hearing that you're conducting tonight is consistent with the original notice that went out to those taxing districts, but we will continue that or have an additional hearing with the revised implementation being completed in 2020, so that the 23 years of tax abatement will actually occur in 2021 through 2043. That will be at the next council meeting in order to provide the 20-day notice that goes to the taxing district, so that would be expected to occur at the November 26th council meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Just a check for understanding, sir. So on Chapter 100 bonds, I call them, if you will, step up. They start at the bottom, and they're going to go up eventually at the 23 or 24-year mark of the bonds. They'll be paying their full tax amount.
Correct.
There's a lot of confusion among general citizenry about how tax abatement works from TIF through Chapter 100 bonds, as I'm sure you're very familiar with that.
Right.
But the fact is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, right now we have an undeveloped piece of land which is only generating a minimal amount of property taxes. So even with the tax abatement requested, once those buildings and those apartments are put on there, the value of that land, the taxable value of that land, because it's been improved, because there are buildings on it, raises greatly as far as the tax taxable amount. What's taxable there? Therefore, collecting 25% of the new value is probably more money to the taxing districts than what's sitting there now as unimproved land. Is that a correct assessment?
That's a correct summary of what's going on. The taxes that are being paid on the property currently amount to about $700 a year. Even with the abatement at the levels that are being requested, the total level of a payment in lieu of tax over the entire 23-year term would be a little over $5 million. The range of the taxes that are being collected by and will be paid to all the taxing districts ranges from about $126,000 in the first year after completion of the project to a little bit over $400,000 in the last year. And so that results in a total payment in lieu of tax over the 23-year term of a little over $5 million.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks for that explanation. Did anyone, Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have some questions regarding the mechanics of the bond itself. With regard to typically bonds or GO bonds are open to the bond market and that can be sold to the public. With respect to this particular bond and the trustee who's going to, I believe you said in your statements that they will be purchasing the bond outright, and if you could speak to, in layman's terms, what does that mean with regard to, usually in securities, individuals may be able to purchase a bond and interest off of that from an investment perspective?
The bonds is very common in a Chapter 100 tax abatement. That this is not a financing tool. It is purely being put in place for the tax abatement. The bonds that are being sold by the city is being purchased by the company. So there's no financial obligation or risk to the city. They don't have any of their own resources at risk to make the payments of the bonds. And the company is purchasing those. So there's not any public offering or the bonds are not going to be on the market for anybody else. It's solely for purposes of providing tax abatement.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And a question has come to the surface for me, and I'm not sure that you're going to be able to answer it, but I'm going to ask this question. The presentation that we were given earlier tonight, there's some talk about having covered parking that is not on the diagram or the visual that we've been given. And then the other taxing districts are going to be informed that the completion date will be 2020.
That's correct.
The project, yeah.
Yeah, the project.
Yeah.
Now, bringing those two together, here, arcing those together, are we talking about, and this may go back to the developer, are we talking about having everything completed at some point in 2020, even the structures that we are not really sure of right now?
Cassie Pabin, 10340 North 84th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68122. Based on the timeline that we have put together and working with our contractors and our project team, we believe 20 months is what it will take to complete every building that you see on site. That would also include any surface garages that we might add or canopy structures. So if we can get started in March, we'll be able to get a good jump because that bigger building in back takes a significant more longer duration for construction than the other ones. So you'll more than likely start to see construction of that going as you start to see the first ones and then work throughout the site. Our contractor feels fairly confident that we can get that done absent any natural disasters, anything out of our control. We do believe we will have it all completed by the end of 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to probably Mr. Fairborn or city staff. Have we ever done a 100 bond at 75% before tax abatement, or is that kind of setting a new threshold for
this? Is our first Chapter 100.
This is first Chapter 100. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The public hearing is open at this time. If anyone would like to address the council with regard to this particular item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Cassie Pabin, 10340 North 84th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I am getting about as good as Peyton Manning. Happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing at this time. Jim, is this something we're going to carry over? This is not a carryover item. This is a first run approval item. Good to go. Okay, I would entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3399.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3399, the lofts at Fox Ridge, Chapter 100 bonds.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3399. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3400 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3400 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from BP, excuse me, Business Park District to PUD Planned Unit Development District, a 136.38-acre tract of land located in the west half of Section 29 and part of the northeast quarter of Section 30 in Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This item does require a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report on this item.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
This request and the next request on the agenda both deal with the proposed Raymore Industrial Development Project. The applicant for this project, Grant Harrison with Van Trust Real Estate, has contacted me requesting a continuance of this request as well as the next request in order to, similar to what we recently did with the Lofts project, to package it together with a financial incentive request that is currently proposed for the November 26th agenda. So since these were advertised this evening, if we could open the public hearing, keep the public hearing opened, and then continue this application to the November 26th meeting. At that time, we'll have a formal presentation on the land use applications and a staff report at that time, sir.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions with regard to that?
If I could follow along with that.
Yes, sir.
This one does not necessarily, because there's not the need for, they are aware of the November 26th date.
Okay.
So that can be a solid date in this case.
All right. Then I would entertain a motion at this time to carry this item over to the November 26th meeting.
Sir?
Yes.
You may want to open the public hearing in case there's any public that do want to speak.
I opened
on
the
this
public
item.
hearing. The public hearing is open.
Okay.
So yeah, I will go ahead and ask, and then we can carry it over again. So the public hearing is open. I hadn't closed it yet correctly. And so I would open this item for discussion by the public. If anyone would like to address this item before the council, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move forward with the public hearing still open, and then I would entertain a motion to carry this item over to the November 26th agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we continue Bill 3400 to the November 26th meeting and keep the public hearing open.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to, would that be approval of the first reading or just carry it over? We'll approve it the first time next time around, Jonathan? We'll approve the first reading next time, right?
Yeah, I don't believe
This is just a motion to carry over.
seeking first reading at this time.
Okay, cool. So this is a motion to carry over. Any discussion on the motion to carry over? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0. The item is carried over to the November 26th agenda. Could you please read Resolution 1866 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 18-66 by title only, a resolution of the Raymore City Council approving the Raymore Industrial Development Preliminary Plan located in the west half of Section 29 and part of the northeast quarter of Section 30 in Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I go ahead and open the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion to do the same thing with this particular item. But I would give the opportunity to the public to address the council at this time on this particular item. If you'd like to step forward, staff report will probably be very similar to the previous. So I would go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody wish to step forward, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments 5 minutes or less. There is none. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item in the same manner.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we continue Resolution -66 to the November 26th meeting and keep the public hearing open.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to carry over this item to the November 26th agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. One absent. Could I please have a reading of Resolution 1869?
18-69 by title only. A resolution of the Raymore, Missouri, approving the 2019 through 2023 Raymore Capital Improvements Program.
Thank you. This also requires a public hearing. I'll open a public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. On August 20th, I presented the annual budget and the capital improvement program for the first time to the City Council. Each year, we approve the CIP following final approval of the budget in case any of the items that have been added to the budget are considered capital program items. That was the case in this particular annual budget. The items that were added tonight that will be added to the CIP, if approved by the City Council this evening, will be $500,000 for the command post vehicle, $58,000 for the center view speakers and video recording equipment, and $150,000 for Madison Street trail improvement projects. As I went through all of the different projects that were promoted, those would be the ones that would require the most capital investment, or they're actually a public project that is going to be in place. So those, of all the projects that were listed, these three were deemed to be actual capital projects. So they would be associated with the new CIP that you all would be approving this evening. Okay. Other than that, you can see the rest of the capital improvement program items that are listed for the period through 2023 on page 425 of the packet. That concludes staff report this evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, is there a motion to dispose of Resolution 18-69? Oh, it is a public hearing. You're right. Staff report is over, so I would open, the public hearing is open, and I would entertain anyone from the public who wish to address the council at this time on this particular item. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion to dispose of Resolution 18-69.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution Resolution 18-69, approval of the 2019 to 2023 capital improvement program.
And I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 18-69. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0. One absent. Could please have the first reading of Bill 3398 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3398 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving a settlement agreement by and between the Public Water Supply District Number 10 of Cass County, Missouri, Good Otis LLC, and the City of Raymore, and declaring this bill as an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. I will let Mr. Zur make the staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fairborn. Mayor, members of the council, I'm happy to be able to provide a report with regard to this. You have a lot of the information included within the terms of the bill. The City of Raymore has been involved in litigation with the Public Water Supply District Number 10 of Cass County, Missouri for a couple of years now, as well as involving recently Good Otis LLC with regard to a detachment of portions of the water district. Based upon negotiations and resolution, following the initial trial of this matter, we have been able to work out a negotiated settlement that will allow for discontinuation of further litigation and allowance for the Public Water Supply District to become a customer of the City of Raymore so that we can develop additional portions within our community under good quality water service. I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have regarding the actual settlement agreement and any of the terms and provisions of the same. Thank you.
Mr. Holman.
Mr. Zur, would it be permissible for you to note for the record the outcome of the original trial?
The City of Raymore was successful at the outcome of its initial trial, though it was directly appealed shortly thereafter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the first reading of Bill 3398.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 33, what did you say?
First reading.
What did you say, what, 3390?
3398.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3393, approval of settlement agreement with Public Water District 10 and Good Otis LLC.
Slight correction.
Yeah, it's 3398.
Is it 98?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm having a heck of a time. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3398, approval of settlement agreement with Public Water District Number 10 and Good Otis LLC.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3398. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. As I have declared this as an emergency reading of the ordinance, could I please have the second reading of Bill 3398 in its entirety?
Yes, sir. As much as I would like to turn over the second reading in its entirety to the wordy author of 8 whereases and 6 sections, I will continue on. The second reading of Bill 3398 in its entirety, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving a settlement agreement by and between the Public Water Supply District Number 10 of Cass County, Missouri, Good Otis LLC, and the City of Raymore, and declaring this bill as an emergency. Whereas the City of Raymore is named party in 2 separate lawsuits involving the Public Water Supply District Number 10 of Cass County, Missouri, styled Public Water Supply District Number 10 of Cass County, Missouri versus City of Raymore, Missouri, case number 17-3042, and Good Otis et al. Versus Public Water Supply District Number 10 of Cass County, Missouri, case number 17CA-CC0055, respectively. And whereas case number 17-3042 involves disputes over service of water by the City of Raymore within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Public Water Supply District and is currently being litigated in the United States Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit. And whereas case number 17-CA-CC0055 seeks a detachment of certain properties from the jurisdiction of the Water District and is currently being litigated in the Circuit Court of Cass County, Missouri, and whereas the parties desiring to avoid the expense and uncertainty of continued litigation and to settle their disputes have prepared a settlement agreement and release, and whereas the settlement agreement and release contemplates the dismissal of the litigation by the Water District, release of the City of Raymore from any alleged liability by the Water District, allows for the detachment of certain properties from the Water District jurisdiction, and requires the Water District to become a water service customer of the City of Raymore so that commercial and industrial development within the city can proceed, and whereas the settlement agreement and release contemplates the dismissal of the litigation by the City of Raymore, release of the Water District from any alleged liability by the City of Raymore, transfer a portion of the water main constructed by Raymore along Dean Avenue, which is within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Water District, provide payment totaling $350,000 to the Water District, and provide credits totaling $150,000 for the purchase of water by the Water District from the City of Raymore, and whereas staff, legal counsel, and special counsel for the City of Raymore have conducted an investigation for the valuation of the facts relating to the claims in the lawsuit and believe that the settlement agreement and release is fair, reasonable, adequate, and in the best interest of all parties. And whereas the parties desire to approve and accept the settlement agreement and release and proceed with the dismissal of the pending litigation between the parties. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Raymore, Missouri as follows. Section 1. The City of Raymore, Missouri hereby approves, accepts, and adopts all terms and provisions of the settlement agreement as a binding and enforceable settlement between the City of Raymore, Missouri, Public Water Supply District Number 10 of Cass County, Missouri, and Good Otis LLC. Section 2. The City of Raymore, Missouri further approves the payment of $350,000, crediting of $150,000 for water purchases, transfer of the Dean Avenue water main from a connection point as defined within the settlement agreement and release to its current terminus, along with all other relief provided in the settlement agreement, and the dismissal of all claims as adequate consideration for said payment and release of all claims by the City of Raymore, Missouri against the parties to the litigation. Section 3, the mayor of the City of Raymore, on behalf of the City of Raymore, is authorized and directed to execute the settlement agreement and release of any other documents necessary to the settlement agreement, to provide for the settlement and dismissal of pending litigation. A copy of the settlement agreement and release is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated as if fully set out. Section 4, emergency reading. This bill is declared and authorized as an emergency and will be read in its entirety to promote the administration of government and permit the completion of the settlement agreement and release terms. Section 5, effective date. The effective date for approval of this ordinance shall be coincidental with the mayor's signature and attestation by the city clerk. Section 6, severability. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions thereof. Duly read this first time this 22nd day of October 2018. Be it remembered that the above ordinance was approved and adopted this 22nd day of October 2018 by the following vote.
Thank you, Ms. Warner. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the second reading of Bill 3398.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3398, approval of settlement agreement with Public Water District Number 10 and Good Otis LLC.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3398. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Question for Mr. Zur. I think I know the answer, but this has already been voted on by the Water District's Board of Directors. Is that correct, sir?
Not just that, Your Honor, or sir, but it has also been approved and already by Good Otis LLC.
And so assuming approval of this body tonight, this is a final and complete matter, and it's in the history books, as they say.
With the exception of putting the ink to the paper, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0. One absent. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3402 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3402 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an amended employment agreement with Jim Fearborn for the services of city manager, authorizing approval of this ordinance and execution of the contract for the city manager.
Mr. Zur, is this something you can speak to here on this for us?
Your Honor, I'd be happy to do so. Thank you very much, sir. Mayor and members of the council, presented to you this evening with Bill 3402 is an amended and updated, extended contract for employment services with Mr. Jim Fearborn, city manager for the City of Raymore, Missouri. It incorporates some changes to it with the inclusion of an increase in base salary by $9,500 and all applicable dates. The term is also extended until September 1st of 2020. I'm happy to answer any questions the members of the council might have with regard to the proposed course and documentation. And I would also note, as with regard to the last item, the rebuke from the city clerk was well deserved with regard to those whereas clauses.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Zur? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the first reading of Bill 3402.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3402, approval of amended employment agreement, city manager.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3402. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0. One absent. That completes items under new business, thank goodness. We'll move on to public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council tonight, I would ask you to please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the mayor-council communications. And Mr. Burke, I'll start with you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple short things. Wanted to welcome back Matthew Wiggins. I'm glad to see him coming back and from working with him on the Charter Commission. And then also, it's good to put Jim Pearman to work volunteering for us in planning and zoning. So thank you. Welcome both, or welcome back.
Appreciate those comments. Mr. Kellogg, going to jump around tonight.
I see that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to welcome the new volunteers. Thank you for your willingness to volunteer and step up. I think you will learn that you will enjoy it. Again, thanks again. I, again, want to take another second to thank all of my colleagues tonight for the hard work that you all have done throughout the budget process this year. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. When I read that Oates bus was in there, I was smiling, and I haven't been smiling lately here. So thanks again. It's great to see the level of civility and the level of professionalism that, you know, and I'm ringing my own bell here, and I'm ringing everybody else's, but it's nice to know that a body of people that come from all different walks of life can actually make a city and make a city run well. You know, so I'm extremely proud of all of our accomplishments, and I thank you all for that. I will take a moment here to, I'm not going to apologize, but there has been a reason for my absence here lately. And I have been strategically silent about it. Mr. Mayor has known about it, city manager, and a couple of my colleagues have known about it. I will say this. My brother passed away last Wednesday. No, he passed away the Thursday before last Wednesday, and I was at the funeral Wednesday. It's been a very difficult time, but I will say that in memory of my brother, I am extremely proud of him. I know he's extremely proud of me. We came from the very same home, the very same upbringing, the very same parents, but we went a very different way in life. He said a joke one time. He says to my sister, and she didn't like it very well, he says, "You got two brothers. One went to Penn State, the other one went to State Penn." And I say that as a term of endearment because I am so proud of what my brother has done in his life. I'm going to miss him very dearly. It's been very difficult for me, but I want to thank you all for all of your support through this time. And that's all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And our prayers and thoughts have been with you all along, brother.
Amen.
Yep. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of Mr. Kellogg's comments this evening, I'm going to let his comments stand for the evening and reserve for next time. Thank you, sir.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, I want to thank all my city council people up here for getting my motion to amend for that tether for the drone. I thank you very much for that. I think it's very important. I want to thank Mr. Zer for all the hard work he's done in the long haul to get this legal matter done, and so we can move forward. It's a big movement for the city, and we thank you very much. Congratulations to Mr. Fearborn for the contract. We appreciate you so much. You're next to none, and we appreciate you and the city, the staff, Jeannie, everyone, Mr. Carteret, Mr. Crass. You guys are just phenomenal. You've done a lot of hard work, and it paid off, and it always pays off, and I'm really appreciative of that. And thank Mr. Peterman for joining Planning and Zoning, Mr. Wiggins to reunite on what he had and re-enlist, as they say. But anyway, again, we had a great night. Very happy for all that we have here. And again, prayers are with you, Mr. Kellogg. When you need anything, just let us know because it's a long haul. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start off with Mr. Fearborn. Congratulations on your contract, sir. We're glad to have you back again and appreciate all the hard work you do. Also to Mr. Wiggins and Mr. Peterman, two very capable candidates here, and we look forward to having both of these people serving the city now. And lastly, Ms. Warner, thank you for your time tonight. I think you earned your paycheck tonight. Very well done. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to apologize for some of my errors tonight in moving the motions. Mr. Fearborn, you know, he has a sharp eye for figures and caught that one quickly, and I normally proofread my cheat sheet, and I obviously missed the bill number there, so I apologize for that. And I always thank the citizen volunteers, Matthew and Jim, both know them personally, good guys. We can't run this city without people like them, and really appreciate their hard work. And I do want to make a comment or a statement on H, the approval of settlement. There was a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into getting that, winning that case and then moving that forward and coming within a win-win agreement for everybody. And I want to commend Mr. Fairborn, Mr. Zur, all the staff that was involved in that. And I know it was a great bit that was involved in that. It took a lot of your time and effort. I know you aged quite a bit over that too. And I really appreciate your hard work. And I also want to say we passed the budget. The budget is passed. So Mr. Fairborn told me he takes 45 days off before he starts working on the 2020 budget. So he don't have to worry about the budget for 45 more days. So I know it's a relief for you, but good job. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to the American government students in the audience tonight. I typically do a recap, but I think you got some pretty good explanations on what went on, and absence of that, if you have any questions about what we did, my phone number is on the website, as is everybody's up here. Please feel free to call me. I'll be glad to answer any questions and outline exactly what happened. I know there was a lot of legalese, and it's kind of easy to snooze off during some of that. So that's the offer I'll make, but I think there were some pretty good explanations across the board from the council. Mr. Kellogg, glad that you appreciated the inclusion of the Yotes bus. A lot of that credit goes to Councilmember Barber. The entire council saw value in that program, but it was he that initiated conversations again after kind of a hiatus of a few years. So you might want to give him some thanks. He reintroduced that idea to us. I want to let everybody know I'm not going to thank Mr. Fairborn back. I'm going to thank God we have Mr. Fairborn here. To steal a phrase from the Navy captain, a ship is only as good as its captain, and we are extremely fortunate to have James Fairborn as our city manager. He has done fantastic work, and I can't say that strongly enough since his time as taking over city manager here. And if you don't believe it, just go out and walk around in this city. Look at the development, the housing development, the business development, our new parks and recs amenities, the condition of our streets and our sewers. And that is a testament not only to him, but to all the people under his charge within the city. Raymore is a great growing place to live, and it only continues to get better every day. And a lot of that is due to the watchful eye of Jim Fairborn. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Barber, don't be too tough on yourself. You did a great job tonight. You're a good mayor pro tem, and I appreciate your conscientiousness on all of that. Tonight was a particularly tough agenda. Speaking of mayor pro tems, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the success of our water district history. As I came on as mayor 2.5 years ago, a lot of strategy was being planned, not only with the private council, but with in-house council. And when I talk about in-house council, I'm talking about Mr. Derek Moorhead as well. As you know, he was a council member here. Unfortunately, we lost him earlier in the year, and we deeply regret his loss at such a young age. But I know that Mr. Moorhead would be also very proud of you all, the way that this turned out. He was very involved within the initial strategy on how to negotiate and get where we got today. And so his fingerprints are all over this as well. And we do miss him. And I'd like to thank Mr. Wiggins and Mr. Peterman for stepping up for the planning and zoning. I'm looking forward to working with them on that commission. And don't forget about the pumpkin auction tomorrow night at Holmes Hall. Hopefully it's not too late. If you want to come to that, you can make a quick reservation tomorrow with Sherry up at the Chamber of Commerce. More the merrier. That money is raised for student scholarships and from the chamber itself. So if anyone would like to participate in that, lots of great pumpkins are auctioned off, as well as other items are being raffled off. It's a great time and a good dinner as well. I think if it's only like $12 for dinner, it's pretty good. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. And with that, I will conclude my remarks and ask for a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move we go into executive session to discuss real estate acquisition, and personnel matters in accord with RSMO 610.021 subsections 2 and 3.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to move into executive session. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad absent. Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Mayor Trumbo.
Thank you. We will go into executive session at this time, and when we adjourn from that, we'll come back out here and adjourn from the open session. So thank you.